Welcome back to the channel. This is your boy Riddell. We're back here at the Purple Political Breakdown, where we analyze a lot of different things, react to a lot of different things, and try to have a more nuanced perspective on situations going down. Don't let political bias taint your mind. Today we're doing a reaction for a Jubilee video, mainly because, well, I can't do the streams anymore. I'm not much of a streamer anyway. Jubilee doesn't like when I stream. They like to copyright my channel for some reason when I stream Jubilee content. So with that said, we're going to react to it. Might skip around.
The way I am, she's dressing extremely scantily.
We might skip around because, depending on the conversation, being fat or skinny is a choice. Obviously, I'll give my feedback regarding the situation.
Every factor is purely choice. I don't think that every factor is, but I do think a majority of it is. And in most cases, for most people, being skinny or being fat is about willpower. It's about the environment you grow up in, sure, but who you choose to associate with, what sort of things you choose to listen to, who you choose to kind of have as your friends around you and support you. All of those things are choices that you can make that will lead you closer towards being one or the other.
I know what I do with my body. I know what I put into it day in and day out. I choose not to eat some days. I choose, how I want to look, and I don't fault anyone for how they want to look or how they want to be, but I think it's a choice at the end of the day. I'm very, always wish-washy on how I want to be presented and if I want to gain weight or not, but the only person that's going to gain the weight at the end of the day is me and me myself.
I'm gonna tie in right here real quick. Being fat a choice, being skinny and fat a choice. I would fall in, for the most part, it is a choice. I mean, I fall into the line that a lot of decisions made from a personal perspective at an individual kind of level is based off your personal preference. Now, you can be conditioned to think a certain way based off external factors, and obviously biological components can play into the argument as well. But for the most part, those things can be learned out of, and when it comes down to it, the choice will always be there because free will is there, right? So I would say it's a choice for sure.
I felt like as a toddler, I always viewed myself as big. I grew up in a very poor home, so where my mom couldn't provide the meals.
And I will say this, to kind of give a little bit nuance to my viewpoint from it. Now, I've never been fat. I've been really skinny. Right now, I'm not even in the best of shape, I would say. I'm still getting into that grind. It requires a lot of intentional movement, getting out there, making sure you're working out. Obviously, it helps if a gym is closer, but trying to be as active as possible. When I was really skinny back in the day, I would always play sports. Now, I don't have that option nowadays. And I work from home, so I don't really have to leave much. So I have to be deliberate in terms of working out, staying fit, and all that stuff. So it's work, but it's important work. Exercise should always be a part of your day, and physical activity.
Healthily.
Animals are not supposed to be complacent all the time in the first place.
Food, and it would be very much food that's not as edible. It was food for us, yes, but then I felt like once
food that's not edible.
Where I was old enough to try to make my own choices, I made all of the wrong choices. I wasn't eating, and I was only eating
so it is a choice.
And that was mainly because I was in a sport, and that sport just worked me out so hard. And it was to the point where I just was scared to eat. I didn't like it. I would only drink water.
When you were eating grapes and lettuce, were you thin?
I was the thinnest I could be.
Were you still big though?
I was still big, but that was the skinniest I've ever been. And that's coming from somebody who was only eating somewhat salads that are just fruit and lettuce and water and maybe ice right before a practice.
Do you think that right now you would not be capable of becoming a thin woman if you wanted to?
I possibly would be capable of becoming a thin woman, but
so it's a choice at that point.
I was supposed to get blood tested probably when I was very young, and I never did. And they had mentioned that it could have been because of my weight.
It could have been.
That connects with my thyroid. I never made the connection, and I never had that leaning parent to be go and get checked out, go and do this, your weight is probably not your fault. It was always your weight is your fault. So that
L parents too,
not making them healthy. blood issues. I'm not quite sure, but I do see an endocrinologist and I go see a doctor. It's a choice to do the requisite steps. It's a choice
Yeah, she's
to go
spitting.
grocery shopping instead of going to fast food when it's easy. It's a choice when you're grocery shopping to go to the outer aisles and like not go into the bread section and not go into the junk food section. These are all choices.
As a disabled woman, I can't do a lot of the things that people say, calories in, calories out, oh, you gotta go work out and exert it. A lot of the things that are typical, oh, this is how you lose weight, put me in the hospital. I have to navigate weight differently. I have to look at it differently. My weight is the way it is because of medication, because doctors put me in this position, and I had to learn, okay.
An
am I
exception,
going to be
sectional
so
case. Still a
critical of
choice,
my
but her
body
situation is
that
very
I'm going
different.
Backlash and putting myself through
My thing's
extreme
peaking a
gym
little
nights,
bit. Let me.
through keeping myself from eating things that I should be able to eat. You should be able to have a balance. You should be able to go into the junk food aisle like other skinny people do and still not have to worry about gaining 20 pounds.
But I don't think skinny people go
all
into
people.
this junk food aisle.
They
I think that's-
certainly
Yes,
do.
they do.
I eat a lot of junk food.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of junk
Yeah.
I mean, my DoorDash would tell you otherwise. Like,
There's a thing called set points. There's a ton of research on it that your body likes to be at specific weights. It likes to
There is an ideal weight. That's true. And skinny people like junk food. When I was really, really skinny, junk food fiend, love my sweets. I will stand by sweets. I can get fit eating sweets easily. That's junk food is not too. It's like it's always a balance, right? You can't just keep on eating junk food and not moving your body. If it's just a bunch of sugar and fat going in your body and it's settling without the requisite, amount of burnt calories based off movement and physical activity, then you're just gonna get fat. So, yeah, let's just so we're on the same page.
be in a specific way. So if you are fighting yourself to lose weight by not eating, over exercising, and you are damn near killing yourself to be at a specific weight, your body's unhappy.
It's important to note that a choice
I'm gonna let him speak, but let's be very clear. Our natural body weight is not obesity. There's no study. I doubt there's a study out there. I'm not going to say no because I'm not 100% sure. But I'm very, very, very confident that a person's ideal weight is optimal conditioning for physical activity based off survival instincts. That is what I'm confident in saying. There's no optimal weight that says your body is allowed to be obese. That is cope. Don't let people cope you out of this conversation. That is cope. Let's be very, very clear in that situation. Don't overdo it, obviously, but your optimal body is one in shape. That is your optimal body.
choice can
Anything
be
else
harder
is just
for people
cope.
to make due to conditions in their life.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's still a choice. I could say that I
Agreed.
had food addiction.
Still a
I
choice.
looked to food when I was stressed and this and that and this, and so it's harder for me to.
I just
choose
like
than for
sweets, bro.
someone who has,
I don't
like,
really get
perfect
stressed that
lifestyle,
often.
Someone who has parents who are giving them this and that and this. But I definitely still acknowledge that it was my choice. At the end of the day, when I go there and I look,
I wish
and
I had his
"Ooh,
beard,
should I order
bro."
a second hamburger. I'm the one choosing whether or not I order that second hamburger. I'm the one making that choice.
I'm not on my parents' health insurance anymore. And I
W
work for
beard
myself
genetics.
doing
I
a
want
bit of
that beard.
everything. So I found a plan for just
Overall, it's a choice. I think saying otherwise is cope. And that's how I'm gonna put it. There are exceptions, like the disabled woman has a very weird exception. Biological functions that make you incapable of, losing weight, regardless of how much you like starve yourself or whatever. So there's like exceptions, but the rule is it's a choice.
Hey.
Should I better help?
The episode.
I would rather be skinny than fat. Can the agreeers please step forward?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna answer this real quick. I'm gonna let them talk. And I'm gonna mute it because I don't want to just stay. I don't believe anyone over there thinks they rather be fat than skinny. There is actually like unhealthily skinny it's still like relatively in shape. When you're fat, that is like the worst condition you can be in. I don't see because like in terms of your attractiveness, in terms of your physical fitness, you're just not on par with someone who's skinny. So I think that's again, that's cope. Are you like, do you care how you look? That's fine, but like I think that's cope. Unless you like really like eating and you don't want to exercise ever, then I guess. But in terms of the functionality of being skinny, you're gonna be in better shape and you're gonna look better. I don't see the argument for being fat. I'll be honest. I don't see the argument.
Make it really hard. So if I was skinnier, at least that's one less thing I have to worry about. But also, I've got 2 kids and a wife, and I'm taking care of them.
W.
And as you pointed out, I definitely think that I'm at less health risks if I'm
Less health risk when you're
if I'm a
skinny
healthy
too.
person in that capacity.
Heart
And
is
I would much rather be that so that I could be around for my kids longer.
heart
Disagreeers, please step
strokes. I forget there's another word with it. Heart strokes, diabetes are some of the leading causes in death, bro.
I'm
Come on
speaking
now.
as someone who actually was a former smaller person, and I had the most body insecurities when I was small. I was constantly living in fear of gaining weight and having people tell me, "Oh, don't gain weight, don't do this, make sure that your weight is the same." And once I finally gained weight, I realized that first off, life wasn't over. I didn't feel any need
This
to
is so.
not
She's
engage in
disabled, so
life
I'm
the
like
previous
taking
way
a
that
little
I
thing
had,
she says with a
and
grain of
the
salt because she
attention
lives
that
in
I
a very
got was
difficult
different.
situation.
But even as a smaller person, you get negative attention, and rather than trying to control my
This is so
body
cope.
to
It's like
avoid
I'm
that
beyond.
negative attention,
I'm gonna
I
let her speak.
prefer
She's
to address the
disabled,
situation
so
as
she's in a different
society,
situation.
Make it more accessible for everybody to where we aren't feeling like I have to be a certain way. That's
You don't have to be
normal
a certain way. That's
in order
fine.
to be treated like a human being and respected.
If I could counter, because I was a bit bigger when I was younger, and that's when I was the most insecure. I would look in the mirror. I did have family members that were skinny, but then I had a family member that was much bigger.
And like I'm gonna be honest. I hate to be this guy, but I'm not going to sugarcoat things for people because of their feelings. Let's be very blunt. There's a reason why there's vernacular that is changed when it comes to dealing with overweight people. There's a reason why we use the terminology plus size instead of the terminology fat. There's a reason why people will get canceled if you call someone fat. Let's not be dishonest with ourselves. Being fat is way more of a situation of ridicule, and you'll be more insecure if you're called out for being fat. If you're being called out for being skinny, in terms of the insecurity levels, in terms of the negative connotation behind it, it's night and day. Now, there will be situations. I don't care about exceptions. Don't bring up exceptions to me. I'm talking about the norm. The norm is that we are trying to make a safe space for fat people because they feel insecure that they're fat. That's what's going on right now. So we don't gotta cope. We don't gotta lie to ourselves based off the situation. She has a disability. I'll give her that. If you want to eat a lot, go ahead. I don't care. But be honest in your situation. People need to start being honest. I'm fat because I'm lazy. Or I'm fat because I like curves down here. But I guarantee they don't like the fupa and they don't like the belly fat. Because even though I'm not like obese, I don't like the belly fat. I got to get on my grind. Let's be honest with ourselves. You don't really want that. You're making yourself feel better, but you don't really want that. We'll just be honest with ourselves. You don't have to be skinny as hell.
The way that I perceive
But you
myself,
don't really
I hated
want
it,
that.
and I even became anorexic to like not be big.
I don't think skinny always equates to being healthy.
Exactly.
I am fairly skinny.
I agree that it
6'5".
doesn't always
I'm
equate to being
140
healthy.
pounds last time I checked, and I'm severely underweight. And I know about this on a day-to-day basis. That being said, I don't know where I'd want to lean at a appropriate.
You wouldn't
weight
want to be
level,
fat,
but I
so
think it's
let's
important to
not
understand for some
let's
skinny
not go
people,
there.
We're not living a great life by any means.
I wouldn't
And
deny that.
sometimes I feel like that's always kind of lost in translation when they see someone who's really skinny.
Good
I
point.
guess it
But
depends what
we're
you mean
comparing
when
two
you think
things.
skinny. Are you thinking of just like an average weight person, or are you thinking of
But-
how you are now?
I'm the average weight for like women in America.
I like
so
Lily.
Hey Siri, What is the average weight of women in America? In the US, the average woman weighs 170.5 pounds. That's actually crazy. Because I'm thinking about like my weight, and I'm a guy. Like women are generally shorter, right? And they have, I guess they have other things that kind of put their weight goes to too, like, you know, what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna stop there.
If we're talking about an average, like,
But we know it's not healthy.
if
We're
your
not.
biggest priority is to be at a smaller body, you need to reassess your priorities.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Not focused on health.
Yeah.
In the immediate time,
What?
skinniness and health, like you emphasized, there is such a gap between the research, because the research has a huge fat phobic bias in it, and
Yo, the cope is crazy. Hey, let's care about the research, but the research is fat phobic. Come on.
there has been research that shows that they aren't, even especially during, let's say, COVID and the correlation between obesity. They rushed through those studies so fast because in society's mind, oh, of course a fat person is going to equal someone who's going to get sick faster, is going to get sick easier. It was an easy jump. So they didn't do all of the testing that they were supposed to.
What are you
They didn't
saying?
check their
What?
bias.
So
They
if
didn't
by
check.
saying the study is biased, you're saying that the study didn't account for the variable that obesity may also take a factor into. It's just that there's so many variables in humanity that these pharmaceutical companies could only account for so many during their trials. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're biased. However, you want to talk about bias in studies, actually recently we've been doing the opposite. So for instance, a lot of our studies have been based on BMI. And so we've been showing that, fat people aren't necessarily extremely unhealthy if we look at people with a certain BMI. However, bodybuilders also have a really high BMI, and so they get counted into that category. And so
Yo. We spitting? Okay.
it wasn't until
Respect.
very recently.
We see who the MVP of this
equated
today's
towards that
episode is gonna be.
mistake, and it shows, oh my goodness, being fat is actually extremely unhealthy, like way more unhealthy than we ever realized.
You can't gauge health by
Yeah.
looking at somebody.
Yeah.
Like none of my
Bro. All right, let's go down the function. An obese person will swim slower, run slower, have worse breathing problems, will be able to just do physical. They just will be able to do physical activity at a way less rate than any skinny person. Like, we don't have to lie because we're comfortable on who we are. I hate when people do this. They lie because they're comfortable for their situation. That is fine. Something that I will preach is we need a sense of normalcy in society that we abide by, that is the best for human prosperity. However, we can't disparage and we can't ostracize other people who have a different level of a normalcy for them, which would be not normal, weird, whatever. But just because you're that doesn't mean that we should take away your rights. Doesn't mean we should make fun of you. It doesn't mean any of that. Live your life on how you live as long as you're following the law. But we don't gotta lie to people and saying that being fat is not unhealthy. Being fat is unhealthy. We all know this. We can go through every metric. Being fat is unhealthy. Now, there are situations where people who have more, mass than some other people can be healthier. That is the exception, not the rule. Let's be very clear.
my health issues, all of them precipitated my weight gain. But
That has nothing to do with the conversation. You just have a
don't you wanna
disability. You're really not part of this
America
conversation.
has
I'm not.
an
I'm
obesity
dead.
problem.
I'm dead ass. There should be 100% yes. There should not be 100% should be yes. We see they're trying to be nice to these people. Like, you don't got to be nice to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just be honest.
I think it's pretty clear. You look at the weight of the average American, you see how obesity has affected.
And I don't want to be
not
mean,
just
bro, but
children,
I be on.
we have
I don't. I'm not
younger
gonna say it.
people
I'm not gonna say it.
who
I'm not gonna say it.
are
That's all I mean.
heavier, and you see that, like, you know,
I'm not a-
weight affects us as a society, and you.
I'm not a
compare that to
nice
how
guy
we were in the
either,
past.
so
Now,
it doesn't really
not
work
that
for
we
me.
should always, we shouldn't compare ourselves to the era of the Great Depression when people just couldn't find food, of course, but. People are heavier now in an unhealthy way, and people are eating unhealthy. They are eating it through unhealthy access to food. They're eating diets high in seed oils. They're eating high in corn syrup. They're doing all this kind of stuff that's not good for them that we didn't used to do, and it's bad. It's not a good thing. It's an epidemic. It needs to be quashed.
Another part of this equation that I want to bring up is that I don't think it's necessarily just because of the food. You could argue it's in part due to it, but I would argue physical activity is the biggest reason why people are getting fatter. Now, food is part of it. Junk food, easy access to fast food is part of it. If kids are not going outside, if kids are not playing, if kids are not being physically active, if they're not playing sports, if they're not going to the gym, if they're not running, walking, if they're not doing activities that an animal should be doing on a consistent basis, they're going to get fat, regardless of what you eat.
Industry, having a fat country makes us money.
It doesn't help that our cities aren't walkable either.
Yeah,
America is a country of non-walkable cities.
That is why I wavered a little bit, because I think we have a problem with how to treat obesity. I think we have a problem with how to make it so that it is not an epidemic. This is a systemic thing, that we are in a society and in an environment that breeds this. And we are doing it to ourselves, we are doing it to our children, and our corporations and our industries are doing it to us, and they aren't having to take responsibility.
And they're encouraging it with media. So
And the mukbangs, I was literally gonna bring that up. The mukbangs and like all those videos that just come up to
it's
trends for people
not
to do
only
it
the
as well.
mukbangs, but also like Lizzo and other big like media people.
I'm sorry. There's a
That's a
very
different-
big difference between the people who are telling people go out and get fat versus a
I love
Lizzo
myself
who's saying
fat.
accept me
Yeah.
the way I am.
She's not just saying accept me the way I am. She's dressing extremely scantily clad and then saying if you don't think that it's normal for a morbidly obese person to be wearing a G-string in the middle of public, then you're the problem. And they're trying to normalize society to this obese culture, which is extremely unhealthy. And
What is an obese culture?
a culture which like normalizes
I'm obese and I haven't even
obesity.
heard that.
Well, obesity is already normal, so
Well, I don't think it should be normalized, and it wasn't normal
But
just a couple
what's the
decades
difference
ago.
between a obese person, myself, walking around in a G-string or a bathing suit, as I do almost every day, and a skinny person? Like, is it okay that the skinny person is doing that?
I don't think so, but
I don't think
that's for other reasons. probably.
In public, no, I don't think. I don't think anybody should be
to
wearing
say
a
that
strange
when
strong in
Lizzo does it
public.
is the same as a Victoria's Secret angel.
Why
It's just
shouldn't
not
it
the
be,
same.
though?
Yeah, what's the
'Cause
difference?
What do you mean?
One is more
Are you
healthy.
telling me you're telling me it doesn't.
I'm not saying they look the same.
Well,
but
I
I'm
mean,
saying
Lizzo
what's
goes
the
on
difference?
stage.
Let's be very clear. One is healthier, and that's all I care about. The conversation, attractiveness, and all that stuff. I don't really care about that right now. I don't even like prefer skinny women necessarily. So
I don't think that we as a society should be modeling obesity.
fat
What
shaming is
not
worse
modeling
than skinny
obesity? I'm modeling the
shaming.
lingerie that obese people need
Diet
to be
culture
able
has
to have really,
positive
really
effects.
Make
you're
it,
lo-
so they've always had.
I'll
the
probably stop it here. If you want to watch the
They
full
have not
video,
lingerie.
make sure to go to
Single
Jubilee.
underwear is like almost $20.
Yeah.
And you go to like.
But I'll watch
Walmart
this segment and then
Target,
probably
and,
wrap
like,
it up.
All these underwears are on special for like $5 to like $20 and stuff.
Well, it
and
does
it's
take
like,
more
it's-
fabric to make it.
It does take more fabric to
They
make
use
it,
that
but
as
it's-
an excuse, but
that
you
would-
make yards of fabric
Yeah.
for gowns. You like
Is a
it's-
small
it's-
a different price than an extra large or a
Mm.
large?
It is.
and
Yeah,
we're willing-
for 3XL shirts, I got to pay more money.
I think people view
Also
models
true.
and Instagram people and all of us who are plus size and proud as we're pushing this obese lifestyle.
Yes.
No, I'm pushing the
Well,
fact that this is what
you
I live
are.
in, this is my life, and I need other people who feel this way to say, hey, I want to be able to wear clothes that look cute too.
Kind of are, but
I do
whatever.
think there's a problem with obesity in America, but I think it's a first world country problem because it's spread across the globe. And also, I don't see it as a problem. I do feel like health-wise,
I see it as a problem, but honestly, I don't really care what you decide to do. Also, in terms of across the world, America dwarfs every other country in terms of obesity. So, like, I hear what you're saying, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
designer, my dad was one, and they buy 10 rolls of fabric for one price. So it really doesn't cost that much to make underwear.
Sure, but don't you also have to worry about distribution? I mean, if the average person is, let's say, in between small, medium, large, and you're sending clothes out for those, you know you could send out 10,000 of this, 10,000 of that, 10,000 of that. You can't always send out 10,000 3XLs because you're not going to have that many people fitting in the 3XL.
No, because there's somebody who works in marketing and they research that area. There's a census. So we have a database of what type of people are there. Now, we don't know who's going in there, but we know the type of people that live in that area and the type of the people that come and visit the area. So that person is doing their job accordingly, and usually large sizes are sold out.
Okay, so somebody brought up the food desert earlier. I can't even think of an area that would have a so-called food desert.
Sorry, can someone explain, like maybe just for my ignorance, I'm guessing a food desert is just there's no food anywhere?
No, it's healthy options for food. So you can go into certain low-income areas and you'll see a Starbucks, a McDonald's, a Chick-fil-A.
That's more
but
self-control.
There's no Trader Joe's.
A food desert, actually properly, there isn't any, like for a long period of driving, there's one gas station and a liquor store. Then you have to drive 2 more miles to hit the next grocery store.
But with the food desert, it's not just that there can be a grocery store.
Yeah, I don't know what these women are talking about. A food desert, I mean, based off what the terminology, maybe go like, hey Siri, what is a food desert? Area that has limited access to affordable and nutritious food. So nutritious is part of the equation, but anytime you go into a place where there's a bunch of fast food restaurants, Trader Joe, sure, but there will be a grocery store. Like, I don't know many fast food, and not a grocery store. There will always be a grocery store that is relatively in the area. So I think that's cope, that is what it sounds like. It sounds like cope. And with delivery options now existing nowadays, you can get food, groceries delivered to your place. That's what I did. I got food delivered from Aldi to my crib because I'm like, bro, because fast food be taking up that bank account. So you got to get groceries and you buy healthy options. Every grocery store has healthy options for food. So cope, straight cope. Come on, what we talk about?
Store there. But if I'm making minimum wage, I'm not going to spend all of my money on what is going to last me 2 meals versus what's going to last me an entire week.
Yes.
Or if I'm on EBT
Yeah.
and I have specific things that I have to choose to buy versus what I can't buy.
Yeah.
Go to the grocery store. What?
In the outskirts, there's so many small towns that you
Small
don't
towns
know
are
that
an
they're-
interesting.
Most of them you won't see on a map, but if you're from there, then you'll know, and they all have to drive a decent amount to be able to go to an actual.
But those are
grocery
small
store.
But
towns.
how often are you going grocery shopping? Maybe like once every 2 weeks would be
I
typically
mean, I think it
normal. So you have
depends.
to do a drive
My family, I gotta
every-
go once a week.
So you're making a drive.
Once a week with the family, once every 2 weeks. I'm more of a once a month person because I have to buy food for only myself. But ultimately, like, small towns are an exceptional situation. Those are not the situations those ladies were talking about. So them agreeing is a little disingenuous. And ultimately, in a small town, there's not going to be miles of fast food. Yes, everything's farther apart, but that includes everything. Like,
Once every 2
gotta
weeks.
piece
I don't
everything
wanna say
together.
drive.
You know what I'm
Access
saying?
to
Yeah, like what if
time
I don't have a
to-
car?
I was like, I don't
I don't even
and if
drive.
you don't have, usually these food deserts also have very poor public transportation options.
Yep,
So
like in the
you are
mountains.
left with people who are stranded.
Yeah, but then what are they eating at all?
Yeah. I
Unhealthy
mean,
crap.
Like,
no, but how
what-
are they?
what-
How are they
surviving
getting
at
the
all?
unhealthy
Food, They
crap?
don't got a car to go to.
Yeah,
How are they-
exactly.
They usually, what I've seen when I go to those rural towns and those rural places is they have chickens and they have animals.
Right.
And guess what? You can get some healthy food out of that. That's
That
like, you know,
sounds
having
healthy.
eggs and protein and things like that. I think I would be healthier if I lived rurally.
Dominic
my
is
life, but I'm
spitting.
trying to leave the state so we're not near all the Uber Eats and all the
I
all that
I
stuff.
grew up in a town of 500. The obesity problem there was not as significant as, say, in LA. And we talk about like food.
We know
deserts.
why.
The nearest Walmart where I grew up was 45 minutes in any direction. The nearest McDonald's was nowhere near to be seen for a long time.
That's what I just said. Like, how you gonna bring up the small towns and say that fast food is gonna be like close to you? That doesn't make sense. Hey, man, I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying?
So when I hear these, like, and there could be some evidence there as like the obesity problem is very low lift.
Were there grocery stores in your small town?
Yes.
Exactly.
Like I'm like kind of baffled by the fact
Thank you.
Maybe I
me
just
too.
need to go out there and like experience the food deserts, but like there was grocery stores where I grew up. Just because we lived in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean we didn't have access to food. And actually, and I have to agree, we did have access to healthy food, very healthy food all the time. I don't think this is big of an issue in my personal opinion.
Fat shaming is worse than skinny.
That's all I got for here. If you want to watch the rest of the Jubilee video, make sure you go check out Jubilee. But yeah, for the most part, live your life. I mean, I don't mind fat people. I mean, you call me fat, bro. 'Cause I'm not in perfect shape right now. When I moved here, the gym is a little too far away. Man, where I used to live, the gym was literally like 10 minutes walking. I would be there every day. I was getting, I was doing my thing, bro. So I gotta create a regimen that kind of fits my current lifestyle. It's a little annoying, but overall, when it comes down to the conversation, being fat is unhealthy. Being fat is not good for human prosperity. If you want to be fat, to each their own. But we don't have to lie that being fat is good for society, right? We don't have to lie. So that's all we got for today. Appreciate you guys watching the video, watching the content. We'll be consistent with more content. I won't be doing a lot of streams where I'm doing a lot of reactions. I'm just not a streaming guy. I tried it. I'll stream when I only do my podcast episodes, and that's about it. But with that said, y'all have a good one. Check out the channel. Check out the podcast. Go to the website, www.purplepoliticalbreakdown.com. Y'all have a good one. Take care, and peace.